Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishram and we are on Vlogmas day number 4. We made it to day 4. That means that we literally only have 21 more days. 21. It's a lot. It's a lot of days, but we can do it. We're gonna make it through. Alright, so as you can see, the song for today is The Christmas Shoes by New Song, which I don't know if y'all have heard it, and I probably should have said it in my other videos, but anytime that I use the song, I make sure I link a video to the song for the day in the description box below, because clearly copyright issues, I'm not going to be able to use the music in these videos. However, I don't know how many people have actually heard of this song before, which is interesting. It is a very, very sad song. It is a song about a little boy who is in this store, and it's from the perspective of a man, and they meet in the store, and this little boy is trying to buy shoes for his mom because his mom is about to die and it's Christmas. And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this song. So The Christmas Shoes is a song by the group New Song. It was released in 2000, and it is actually one of the most polarizing holiday songs that I have ever come across. This is a song that a lot of people say you either hate it or you love it, and a lot of people love it because it is a song that they can connect to. It's heartbreaking. People usually cry as soon as they hear this song, and there are people who actually hate this song because they say that this is a song about a man and how this little boy has changed his life, and it's pretty selfish because we never figure out what happens to the little boy or his mom, and a lot of people feel like it's just too much for those who are probably going through a lot during the holiday times. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I would recommend listening to it this holiday because 2020, y'all, 20 freaking 20. Anyway, The Christmas Shoes has also been turned into a movie, and I believe a series of books have also been written based off of the song. Alright y'all, so let's go ahead and let's talk about some books that have made me cry. I don't cry a lot. I'm not a crier. I'm a crier in real life. Books, on the other hand, it takes a little bit more to make me cry with books, but there are a few. As a matter of fact, looking at this list, there are 6 books that I know of in the current times that I have read that have made me cry. So let's jump into it. The first book that I have on this list is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. So if you've never heard of this book, I understand. It used to be a booktube darling, but then people stopped talking about it. But Ruta Sepetys writes a lot of young adult historical fiction, and she often focuses on aspects of history that are not taught or not actively learned about. So Salt to the Sea focuses on World War II, but is from the perspective of those from Lithuania, and that is a completely different perspective than what we usually get. And it also focuses on the Wilhelm Gustloff, which was a ship that everyone was trying to get on to take them to safety to escape both the Russians and the Germans. And it is I think it's the second most deadly maritime disaster in history, and no one talks about it, and no one knows about it because it's not taught, and so many people died. There's this line that I had marked in this book, which is why I was looking down, but with the ships that were destroyed during this time in the Baltic Sea, over 25,000 people lost their lives. Not specifically just on that one maritime disaster, but on that one in addition to others. And y'all, I can't even. This book was sad. I mean sad. I was listening to classical music while I was reading this, and when I got to probably the last in between, I would say 40 to 50 pages, I completely lost it. I remember sitting in my bed listening to classical music and having a complete breakdown because I just couldn't fathom the amount of loss that people felt or had to go through because of what happened during these maritime disasters and how no one talks about it. And I actually did a full review on this, and I'll make sure I link it in the card symbol, where the title of that review was I Big Girl Cried, which I did. I definitely big girl cried in this one because it was just so heartbreaking. It's told from 4 perspectives, and the things that these 4 characters go through, just even that is enough to just completely tear your heart to pieces. So if you're looking for a different young adult historical fiction that explores some lesser known historical events, I definitely would recommend checking out Salt of the Sea and just checking out Ruta Sepetys in general. The next one that I have on this list is Anger is a Gift by Mark Oshiro, which I'm sure no one is surprised about. I read this one this past summer, and it's about this young boy by the name of Moss who lost his father. His father was murdered by a police officer, and it creates the situation where Moss definitely struggles with his relationship with police. And this book touches on a little bit of everything from police brutality and racism to policing our kids when they're in schools. And a heavy part of it is about how we police our kids in school and how that creates volatile situations, because you already are saying that you don't trust kids. And I think that there are better ways to handle situations like that than to police them. But there was a section of this book that tore my heart out. It like destroyed me to my core. And I remember writing this review and saying, like, I usually don't cry in books, but this book, like, it just tore me to shreds. And I want to reread it, but I know that I need to be in a mental headspace to read this book, because it covers so many tough topics. And that one section, I just couldn't believe that things happened the way that they happened. But this is definitely a good read. The next one that I have on this list is Daughters of Jubilation by Carolee Cawthron. I always messed up. Cawthron. I always mess up her last name, but I was surprised by this one. Daughters of Jubilation is very much so a Southern fantasy that covers some really dark topics as well, and looks at racism in a different way and focuses on these magical abilities called the Jube that's passed down from generation to generation. And what was so hard for me about this book probably came within the last 20 or 30 pages, and I can't really talk about it clearly because it would be a complete spoiler, but I was surprised at the emotional reaction that I had. I wasn't anticipating feeling sad, but I was so heartbroken, and I felt for everything that our main character had been through, and for everything to come full circle, and this was kind of the conclusion. It hurt me for her to see her have to go through those things, but it also made me wonder if we were going to get a sequel out of it, because of the fact that so much just happened in those last few pages that was just completely devastating. So I have ranted and raved about this book completely, and how much I enjoy it and love it, and hope that other people will get to experience it the way that I have. But I also did not really talk about the fact that it emotionally did tear me apart. The next one that I have on this list is Cherishing the Goddess by Lucy Eden, and I like to say this is the first proper romance book that I ever read. Anything that I had been reading before was very much so a contemporary, and I think more so along the lines of women's fiction. This was the first time that I think I really did experience reading a actual romance book. And this is essentially about 2 characters, Alexander and Calypso, who are on 2 opposite sides of the table when it comes to this island in Barbados. I believe that Alexander is coming to buy property, and that property actually ends up belonging to Calypso, and she won't give it up because it's closely tied to a family secret. And whew, don't want to cry talking about it now. That family secret is what hurts me so much, because I experienced that same exact thing that Calypso experienced, and it had only been it actually hadn't even been a year since my experience. And I remember getting on Twitter and saying, like, I didn't know that romance could make me feel so many different emotions, especially this emotion of pain. And it was a happy book. It definitely was an HEA, but the reason why they kept that island a secret was really, really hard for me, because it reminded me of some things that I had been dealing with in that time. And even now, just talking about it is hard for me, because it still is taking me back to some things that I had dealt with. And I just remember crying and crying and crying and crying. And I'm hoping that when I get done filming this video, like, I don't cry. But yeah, this was a tough one. It was a good romance novel, but it was definitely a heartbreaking read for me. The next one that I have on this list is one that I actually just talked about in my November wrap up, and that's Light for the World to See, 1,000 Words on Race and Hope by Kwame Alexander. And I am not going to go into specific details with this one either, because I've kind of already talked about it, but it is a collection of poetry that Kwame has written in this difficult time that we've been going through in 2020, especially in relations to race and how it looks in America and what it means to be Black in America, just really specifically talking to the Black experience. And I listened to this book, I think when I did my wrap up I said 4 or 5 times, and by the time I counted, I think it was about 5 times that I had listened to this book, because I just wanted to absorb the poetry and really understand what Kwame was saying. Because the first couple times I listened to it, I said, oh, this is good, but I don't think I got it. And by the time I had listened to it that final time, it clicked. And oh gosh, it was hard to know how much of what he was saying was a reality for me as a Black woman living here in America. But it was just very interesting as well, because Kwame was very much so writing words of hope and telling us, and not just a Black community, but us as, you know, a global community, like, not to give up and to always have hope. And I can't explain to y'all how difficult it is sometimes to be hopeful when times are so grim. And I know that I'm not the only one who feels that way. I know that there are people out there who are having a very difficult time with this pandemic and have had a really difficult time dealing with the state of race and racism in this country. And sometimes I have found myself just feeling like I have no hope, and having that feeling of this is not going to get better. And Kwame definitely reminded me that the only way to make it through sometimes is just to have a little bit of hope. So I'm tearing up really actually talking about this one, because this book really meant a lot to me. It meant a whole lot to me, and definitely easily one of my favorite books of 2020. The next one and final one that I have on this list is We Are Not From Here by Jenny Torres Sanchez. And this is specifically about 3 teenagers as they make their way from Guatemala, trying to escape some really awful things happening in their town and trying to make it into the United States. And I had a very interesting reaction to this, because I knew going in that this was going to be hard, especially because we've been having a lot of conversations in our country here in the US about how we have been treating asylum seekers, and especially when it comes to kids who are seeking asylum, and how these kids have given up everything, have risked their lives, just trying to make it to a better place. And I remember listening to this on audio when I was cleaning the bathroom out, and I literally just broke down because the scene happened, and I just couldn't believe that it had happened. And it wasn't just because it had happened, but because I knew that this was someone else's reality. And while I face my issues and my struggles of being a Black woman in the United States, I am very empathetic to those who have other struggles, and I couldn't imagine living in a world where I had to leave my home because I felt unsafe, and going through hell essentially to make it to a place that's safe, and then to come to that place to be treated so poorly, and to know that these kids were willing to die. And just not adults, I mean, there are kids, teenagers, young kids making these journeys and dying just to make it somewhere safe. And I just couldn't grapple with some things that had happened as a result of them trying to migrate from Guatemala to the United States, and what happened to them once they made it to the United States. This was not an easy read. It tore me up emotionally, and it was tough, man. It was tough, but it is one that I think is a powerful novel, and one that a lot more people should be reading. All right, y'all, that is it. Those are some books that have made me cry. I got a little emotional talking about some of those because I've had some very interesting reading experience talking about some of those books. So I hope y'all enjoy. Let me know in the comments, have you read a book that has made you cry lately? I hope that maybe that will be it for 2020 for me. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. If you're interested in supporting my channel, the links will be down in the description box. If you're interested in following me on social media, all the links will be down in the description box as well. And as always, like I said in the other videos, I will be back with another video tomorrow.